Yeah, thanks for joining me today. I'm so excited. Like I said, I'm a founding member of the Rose City Rollers. That means a lot of things. One of the things it does also mean is that we didn't have any money for jerseys or uniforms or shirts. And when we got invited to places to go skate, like we got invited to go to Coos Bay or Idaho, we're like, oh my gosh, let's go. And then we get there and half the girls like didn't have um, like jerseys with their name and number on them, and we had different refs who didn't know what their name or number is. And so I got really good really quick at creating a quick jersey, if you will, if you're on the road. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. And I created a PowerPoint, and I'm going to go through the information. So yeah, let's get this party started. I'm going to share my screen and let's have some PowerPoint fun. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Share. All right. Okay, let's see. All right, let's start the video. Start from beginning. Ah, that's me. So there we go. From beginning. Ah, there we are. That's me. My full name is Bittersweet Child of Mine. A lot of people just call me Bitter. It is a weird word, bitter, but only my Derby sisters dare to call me that name. So I actually really love it, and it's very endearing. So if you see me, feel free to call me Bitter. I am a master crafter, and that's not a brag, that's a real thing. So here's our basic plan. I'm going to go over some design rules, which you need to know if you're going to be putting something on the back of a shirt, like people that are in the screen printing industry and print shirt designs all the time. These are their basic rules. And then I'm going to go over my top 3 favorite techniques, and then we're going to do an Ask Me Anything at the end. All right, so here is the back of a shirt. So what we need to understand, if you're going to put something like your name and number on the back of a shirt, or anything, any logo, any whatever you want a silly shirt for Groundhog's Day for you and all your friends to wear, we need to know what design space you have on the back of the shirt. So our design space, I'm going to annotate it here. It starts for most I would say females, but most males too. It starts right here at the top of the shoulder blades, about 2 to 3 inches from this top seam up there, and then goes down as far as about the bottom of the rib cage and over and up. So this area is your design space, and this is about a 12-inch by 12-inch space. So something to take in note of. So if I'm going to put letters up here and I'm going to put a number right here, I'm going to slice this up to where my letters are going to go, and then I'm going to do some math. Really easy though. Say I have 6 letters in my name, I'm going to split it in half. So there's going to be a half line right here. I'm going to do 3 letters here and 3 letters here. And the best way to get your letters evenly spaced out is to do a letter on the outside and letter on the other outside first, and then sandwich in. Never start from one side and just go all the way to the end. That's a little graffiti trick. I used to do graffiti when I was a teenager. You want to do, if you want to do get it into one little space, you want to do one letter here and one letter here. And then I usually do the middle letter if there's a middle letter, say if it's a 7 letter, and then I'll just sandwich the other letters within here. It will look a lot better that way. And then of course, obviously if you're, skating with refs or people that don't know your number, sometimes you want to put your number bigger, or if you want to put on your sleeve, however you're feeling like that. So that's some of the basic shirt design rules, is that the back of this is 12 by 12. And if you're designing a shirt just with like a logo on it or a picture, it's about 12 by 12. Anything below here just gets muddied, when you're skating, obviously, or moving a lot, doing athletic activity. So that's one of the things I really wanted. So let's clear all my drawings. Go back to mouse. Close this up. Next slide. Okay, so here's one of the quickest and most sought after t-shirts ideas. If you're like in Vegas and you're at RollerCon and you want to get your name on t-shirt, is a Sharpie. I wouldn't say it was the best, but I would say it was the most often used. And it rarely works out well, but I'm going to tell you how to actually make it work out well, because I want you to be able to do this if you're in that situation and all you have is like a half dried up Sharpie and a white t-shirt I want to help you. So let's listen up here. This is how you do it. First off, do not try to fill in the entire letter with marker, like scribbling it. You're not going to make it, man. You're not going to make it. You might make it to one letter, and then halfway through the next letter, it's going to start to fade away, and there's going to be a lot of sadness, and then it's just not going to work. You could also freshen up a Sharpie with rubbing alcohol. That's something that works. Spitting on it does kind of give you a little bit of longevity, but not as much longevity as like alcohol, rubbing alcohol, or, if somebody had like a flask or something, that'll also freshen up a little bit of a Sharpie. But how you do a Sharpie on the back of shirt, use a marker to draw a pen and an outline of each letter and number first. And you want to do that 12 by 12 space that I talked about. Put your letters out, the outside letters first, the middle letter if you have it, and then smash the other letters in between there, trying to space them a little bit evenly out. Do an outline. That's the first thing. If you get that done first with your Sharpie, you're in pretty good shape. That's legitimate. You can wear that. And then put something like cardboard inside of it, so to keep it really stiff while you're working with your material. If you have more time, you want to stabilize your workspace. Also, you don't want that bleed through to go to the top of your shirt. It just kind of is gross. This works best on a light color shirt. You want to test the contrast of your Sharpie or your marker in a small inconspicuous space, like down on the inside of the cuff or on the bottom of the shirt. Just test it first, because what if they give you like a yellow shirt and you have like a red mark and you're like, oh, it's not going to work, but it might work. So you want to test it in a small place where we don't have to really see it first without essentially ruining the shirt. A good place to get shirts if you're on like the road, or if you're on like a really small budget, is on the clearance rack at like a big box store. I want to say like a Walmart or a Target or something. They'll have $2 or $3 shirts or tank tops that are usually blanks. You can just go through the racks real quick and find one in a bunch of different sizes. And then once you create the design letters on the back of the shirt, create something to put inside of it. You could put like dots or stripes or just like squiggles, but you want to like fill that with like a pattern or design. And I would just say pick one pattern or design and do that through the whole shirt, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so next slide. Spray paint stencil. Who likes this one? A lot of people like this one. I've done it. Spray paint stencil can be done. It's a little bit tricky, but it can totally be done. I'm going to give you some tips on how to do it. I would say that spray paint stencil, again, is best done on a light colored shirt. A dark colored shirt is going to be really trickier to do, even if it's like a red or a black. But one little trick, if you do have to do it on a dark colored shirt and you're actually going to a store to buy paint, grab your paint, say your white preferably. Also grab a paint of primer spray paint and give it a little primer spray first, which is going to give you a nice base coat. Just like, your wood shop teacher would tell you, I guess, a coat of primer is going to seal that area where you're going to want to be spray painting, and then coat it with your top coat of the actual color that you want. And you want your color to be white, or if it's on a black shirt, or black if it's on a white shirt, the highest contrast colors that you want. That's what you're going for. So anyways, it's best on light colored shirts. There is overspray and underspray, and I want to talk about that for a second. Don't be sad about it. It happens to the best of us. Overspray and underspray happens. If you see this shirt here in the picture, there is, obviously it was taped down, and then around it you can see there's overspray. Some people like that. Some people call it a design choice. If you make some sort of mistake and you're sad about your overspray, underspray, just say it was a design choice. You meant to do that. And it looks great because no one knows how it was supposed to come out in your head. Everyone just knows that it's done, and done is way better than not being done. So in order to avoid some overspray, too much overspray, it's just like, let me get my annotation out here. Right here, you see this overspray. They tape this off. You can use any kind of tape. Blue painter's tape is great. Any tape. Duct tape is probably a little bit excessive. Even Scotch tape, if that's all you had, but any kind of tape around your stencil to tape it off so that you can keep your letters really tight and pushed down. And you want your letter stencils as tightly pushed down to the shirt as possible to avoid underspray. An underspray is when the paint kind of sneaks up under this stencil and then will spray out to your word, onto your letter there, kind of you know, blurring the word, which is the whole point, is that you want to be able to read this from far away, and you want it to be as solid as possible. So one of the ways that you could possibly help with underspray, and again, if you have it, if you don't have it, fine, is you want something like glue. Screen printers will use something called a like tack spray, and some people, you just spray on the back of the stencil, and it makes the back of the stencil tacky, so that you put it on the shirt, and it really sticks, and then no spray will get underneath your letters. You can buy all these supplies mostly at an art store. An art store would be preferable to find your supplies, but you can go to a hardware store, or usually a big box store will have a corner where they have these supplies as well. You want to outline your, oatmeal cardboard. What kind of stencil are you going to use? Oatmeal cardboard is my favorite. It's so good. And I was in the military. I served in the Navy. We used to do, I used to have to do stencils a lot, and then this beautiful oatmeal cardboard. And what oatmeal cardboard is, it's a really thin, tightly pressed cardboard that's almost like oiled. And so the oil keeps it from being water resistant. So when you spray it, and the spray liquid doesn't get into the cardboard to make the cardboard like curl up or distort, because the oil repels the liquids. But hack for that is cardboard from, say, like a 12 pack or like a 24 pack or a 6 pack for cans or bottles. That thin cardboard there is designed to keep its shape even if the can or the bottle is sweating, which they sweat. They get them out of the cooler, and then you throw them in the back of the truck, and they just, sweat, natural science. So that cardboard is some of my favorite cardboard to use. If you can get a hold of some of that instead of using actual paper or cardstock paper, that's ideal. That's the best cardboard to use for stencils, for spray paint stencils. And that's going to be a stencil that you can reuse like for 20 shirts and not even be that sad about it. All right. Most people use, let's go into words. Most people use these stencil style words. You can see that stencil style, that font in the top. And they look really weird when you're first checking them out. You can buy these stencil style words, a stencil font at, I said, like art stores or in the art supply section, even at the dollar store. I've seen them. They come like in 2-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch, and the whole alphabet, so that you can just put them together and put a name across it. But again, you want to keep in mind your math. You usually have about 12 inches long. So if you have 6 letters, how are they going to all fit? Sometimes you can overlap them a little bit. I want to say, don't be sad about this little line that comes through the A or the B. Once you actually get the stencil on there, you're barely even going to see those lines. Usually those lines almost just like melt away. And also, I don't stress about, you can see right here in this this top word, the Y-O-U-R, that O right there, they didn't put the middle part. If you have like a middle part, that just don't worry about like cutting a line and then having a piece of cardboard there. Just leave it. Just leave it. It looks fine. Everyone can look at it, see that that's an O. No one's gonna stress about it. But I just want to say, like, if your first time using stencils, it looks like first that you think it's going to look like garbage. It's not. Those little tiny lines are just going to melt away. The last thing about spray paint stencil I want to talk about, it does leave a smell, a very distinct smell, which is gross, especially if you're doing athletic activity in it. I've done more than a few for people like right before a game or like the night before a game, and then they wore it at the game, and then everybody complained. Everybody complains. They're like, oh, it smells so bad. Ah. So if you have time, I would recommend washing the shirt before you have to wear it. And don't worry that it's going to ruin your stencil, because it's not. It's gonna look super cool. I've done a lot of events, and I just put together like a little event shirt and made a stencil for the front and just spray painted them really quick. Got like $2 t-shirts at Gen X Clothing, and as they wash, you wash them more and more, they look really cool. They become like faded but interesting, but you can still see the design. So just let the spray paint dry, which usually takes like not long, not even a full hour usually, if you could have it outside airing, and then just wash it in like a washing machine and dry it so that the smell goes away. Because I'm telling you, those things totally smell. All right,
Yeah,
let's.
and I second that as somebody. I've used a ton of spray paint, and I used to paint murals and some graffiti back a long time ago. But I always had multiple caps, because when you're painting murals and graffiti for art, you have a lot of caps, right?
Yeah.
You want to speak to clearing out caps, because a lot of people get frustrated with spray paint as a medium because they don't first of all shake the crap out of it, which you really need to.
Yes.
But clearing out caps, can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, spray paint artists have a bunch of caps, and some of them you'll hear a common term is called a fat cap, and that gives a wider spray, and almost a more controlled spray. And a lot of artists, when they're done spraying something, they'll flip the can upside down and with the nozzle on the bottom, and give it a good spray for a few seconds to clear out the nozzle, and that will clear out your cap. And then you get to just put your cap back in your little pocket and keep it. Another tip with your spray painting a lot, I don't use my index finger, my little pointer finger when I'm spraying, because my hands get so tired. So I hold it when I use my thumb. I use a thumb technique and just spray it. And of course, if you ever sprayed, you want to be at least 8 inches to 10 inches away. You got to take in the wind and all that stuff. But another tip would be use your thumb if you're going to be spraying more than one shirt instead of just pushing down with your one finger. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next slide. Who's ready? All right. Freezer paper stencil. It's my favorite. I got to be honest, it's my absolute favorite. Freezer paper.
Technique. I'm so glad you're covering this.
Oh yeah, it's my favorite. And a lot of people don't think of it. It's super cheap, super cheap. And the great part about it is it has a waxy side and a paper side. Guess what you can do on that paper side? You can draw your stencil out. If you get a ruler, you can draw out your 12 inches by 3 or 4 inches, and then you just draw out your letters. Super easy, which is great. And then the other side of the paper is waxy, and that waxy part you just iron onto a shirt and it sticks so that you could pull it off when you're done. Anyway, so freezer paper is my favorite. You can find it in the grocery store next to aluminum foil and plastic wrap. It comes in like a giant roll that you'll like never run out of. I have like 2 rolls and I use it all the time. I don't even understand. It's like this never ending roll. It's like 1,000 square feet. You'll never use it all. Anyways, so for those, you want to draw. I usually like to do a pencil. I don't like to use a pen on that if I'm drawing it out, because the pen is sometimes will leak, the ink will leak and will get on your iron and then will leak onto your shirt when you're ironing it. So I really prefer a pencil if you had it. Of course, if you have a pen, fine, maybe just shake it out a little bit so it dries before you start ironing it. So you can see in this top picture here, this person that's ironing it, you just lay your stencil out once it is all cut out and iron it on like a nice not too hot heat setting, and then it just sticks to the shirt. So also this other picture here, you can see someone's just using paint. I can't even count how many times I had to make a shirt and someone hands me a pack of puffy paints and I'm like, puffy paints, they don't work that well, but they work okay. I don't know. Again, in a pinch, it'll work. So the great thing about this freezer paper is that it really ironed down flat, so you won't get any of that underspray that I talked about with the spray paint. So you can really just paint right over it. But this person right here is using a sponge, and they're using more of like a dabbing technique instead of a pushing, because they don't want to like push to get that paint underneath the stencil. So they're more like just like dabbing it. So what you want to do is draw your stencil, then you cut out your design. Either if you have like an X-Acto knife is great, or even if you just have scissors or something else, just cut it out first and then lay it onto your shirt, iron it really quick, shake it out to get the heat off, and then use your paint. And then you could pull the stencil off. And the great thing about freezer paper is you can reuse that stencil like a couple of times. So you can keep reusing it. All right, next one. Well, it's actually kind of the same one.
Bitter, do you, with your freezer paper, I've never used it more than one time. Do you find that you can iron it on again, or do you lose the ability to iron it back on?
I can iron it on like 4 or 5 times at least.
Yeah, I did not know.
Yeah, it still has wax on it, so you can keep on. I mean, I think I've heard you could use it up to 10 times, but like if I'm doing like a group event and I want to make silly T-shirts for everybody to wear and everyone have matching shirts and I want like a logo on the front or the back and we all like look dumb together and it's a basic logo, so I want all the same thing on everybody's shirts, then I'll just make a quick freezer paper stencil and I'll just peel it off afterwards, let it dry for a few minutes so the paint isn't wet, and then put it back down on another shirt, iron it on, bam, good to go. Then I didn't have to cut out a whole nother stencil.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So the last technique, I'm probably cruising pretty fast. Let's see what time it is. Oh, fast, 7:27. So last technique I'm going to cover is fabric applique, which I love to do. And fabric applique is a great way to do it. There are some caveats though. It does add extra heat to the back of your shirt. So if you're doing athletic stuff, you're going to be sweating a bit more. So just be mindful of that. It does make the back of the shirt kind of hotter. So I have had people be sad that it's like, oh, my shirt's too hot. And like, well, whatever, you can't play without a shirt. So I use a basic freezer paper stencil to, draw the design. And then instead of cutting out that design first, I'll just have like a 12 by 12 inch or 6 by 6 inch tall by 12 inch wide piece of paper that I drew my design on, and then I'll iron that on to a piece of fabric, and I want that fabric color to be as high contrasting as the shirt color as possible. And then I will cut out the fabric and the freezer paper at the same time. So you just cut it out, and the freezer paper is great because it keeps the fabric stiff for you. Some people will use like something you may have heard of, like an iron-on interfacing on the back of the shirt, which is fine, but also it makes the back of the shirt hotter, and nobody likes that. Nobody. So I would recommend freezer paper stencil. And then you don't even have to peel the freezer paper off if you don't want to. You can just take the freezer paper and the letter that you cut out, put it on the back of the shirt, pin it or tape it down, and then sew around the edges, just like with big stitches of your hand sewing if you have a needle, or a sewing machine if you have a sewing machine. And then after you've stitched it, then you can peel the freezer paper off, or you can peel it off before if you don't feel comfortable with that. But just want to say you can totally do both ways. So that's basically it. It's pretty easy to do applique of fabric. And some of the tricks that I use for that is I use glue. I use instead of pins. I don't love pins. I don't like keeping them. I find I lose them and then people step on them and it's a lot of sadness. So I usually just use a glue stick, and I am a really big quilter. So I do a lot of quilting stuff, and people just use like a regular school glue stick, like a little bit of glue on the back of the letter or the number. Put it on where you want it to be on. You can iron it dry or just finger press it with your finger, and then bam, your letter stays there while you're sewing it on, and it's no big deal because that glue usually just like washes out and you don't even see it. And then you can just stitch around the edges, with the machine, or you can totally just stitch around the edges with just a needle and thread. And if you're doing a needle and thread, you don't have to do tiny stitches. Just do big, messy ones. It's gonna look super cool and handmade, and everybody's gonna totally love it. So that's my last one. I mean, there's lots of more to do besides that. There's lots of different ways, but those are my top 3. Those are my favorite. And so I'm going to stop sharing now and take some questions.
Those are awesome techniques. I would love to see, like, what is your for whip stitching fabric appliques. I've never seen that done in any way that didn't look like church social level. Like, can you share your screen and give us an example of what that looks like?
Yeah, I do it all the time. If you're on Instagram, which I hope y'all are, just do #big stitch quilting.
Okay, cool.
thing. It was largely done in the South. Have you ever seen the quilts of Gee's Bend
Yeah.
by women of the African American community? They did big stitch hand quilting over their quilts instead of these tiny little perfect little linear things, and it
Mhm.
looks gorgeous. And now it's like a thing that everybody does. They use large like pearl cotton. You can find it like you remember you used to make friendship bracelets when you were a kid. That thread is great for doing it, or any thread that you have. I guess if I was going to give tips and tricks on doing that, I pull my needle through, double, and I do a knot with both threads on the end instead of just pulling it through and having the thread stick out and then a knot on the bottom. So I pull the bowl through. So I have a knot on the bottom because if I'm pulling it a lot, I don't want that needle to come unthreaded because that's just me. I'm not really looking. I'm just stitching really fast and furiously, and I hate having to rethread that needle. So that would be a trick. And then I just do big stitches. And I've stitched a lot of things with a lot of people. And most people, when they're first starting to hand stitch, they're really nervous and they do super tiny stitches and it takes a really long time. And I just want to say, you don't got to do that. You don't have to do that at all. Just
And
stitch
I do want to speak to the fabric weights because that's something that can get in the way for a beginner. Do you have some tips about fabric weights, like having equal weights between the one you're stitching on and the one that it's stitched to? It has worked best for me, but you know more about it than me.
If I was doing a t-shirt, I don't want to use another t-shirt if I have to. What I want to use is a cotton. I want to use a pure cotton without a stretch because I don't want my letters or numbers to stretch. So I want to use like a quilting cotton, which is like this. This is like a 100% quilting cotton. If this is also the same cotton that is in pillowcases or sheets or like dresses or like a man's woven shirt. So there are other places where you can find quilting cotton in a pinch, and a lot of people use it. Like you can stop at a thrift store and grab a pillowcase and cut all those up and use them for letters and numbers. But I would definitely suggest
So,
quilting cotton because it doesn't move as much.
and I see so many like orphaned sheets and pillowcases and stuff. I shop the bins are down the street from my house because I'm here in downtown Selwood.
Ah,
So I'm always collecting that fabric from those orphaned cases, and you can find some really rad stuff. Like I found a Godzilla pillowcase, and it had lost all of its friends, but I had Godzilla, so I made an awesome Christmas sweater with my son. So
oh yeah, that's a patch. That's a back patch.
yeah. So no one had any questions. Oh wait, we do have questions. Disco, help! I want to be on the black scrimmage team. How do I make a quick DIY black shirt? I've tried bleach pins and they bleed.
Yeah, bleach pens aren't going to work. They're going to give you a lot of sadness. Don't fall for it on Pinterest. Pinterest is lying to you about that bleach. There are some tricks about bleach that can help. Getting your ratio right is going to be helpful. Most blogs are going to be like, don't do more than a 50-50 water bleach ratio. And they're only saying that because they don't want to be liable to buy you a new shirt. You want to be heavy on the bleach and light on the water. And just like, I don't know if you've ever bleached your hair or lightened your hair for anything, when they wrap it in foil, and what they're doing, they want to wrap it in foil, they want to keep it wet, and they want to get it hot. So you want to keep your bleach wet and as hot as you can, which is weird because you want to kind of put it in the sun so that it gets hot, or you can blow dry it so that it gets hot. But I have used bleach stencils a lot with freezer paper is my favorite go-to for bleach stencils. And I would just say if you possibly can, experiment in a small spot or on a shirt you don't care that much about. I made bleach t-shirt stencils last year for a friend. They're going on a big family vacation. Everybody wanted matching shirts. But it totally can be done. But just think about it as when someone bleaches their hair, they have those little aluminum foil tips on it to keep it warm and hot and wet as long as possible, so the bleach does its work. So that's what I suggest that. And don't be scared to do a heavy-handed bleach. I don't love that bleach pen. I would go to the dollar store and get like an empty spray bottle out of the hair section, and then mix my bleach and water in that spray bottle. Guess what? That spray bottle is not going to last. That's like a one-time use spray bottle because the little inner workings of that spray bottle is going to rust, and it's not going to work. In a couple days. It'll work for a few days, but usually they don't last that long because I do a really heavy blend of bleach solution. And I would say just don't be scared that you're going to get holes in your shirt because you probably won't. not unless you're using pure bleach. But I don't like that bleach pen. The ratio is off.
Yeah. So Sarah, tell me the really specifically. So the freezer paper method, spray bottle, mostly bleach, maybe a third water, spray it on. How many minutes?
Till it dries.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, till it dries. I mean, it'll dry probably like within 10 minutes.
And do you get a lot of bleed around
But if you're out,
the freezer paper keep the bleed down pretty well?
freezer paper completely keeps the bleed down. I mean, I did like tiny little stardust, like the stardust went all across the upper part of the t-shirt as and like this, they had this bear on the bottom. It looks great. It looks so great. Also, you can just also do like a relief stencil instead. You can just cut out the letters and the numbers just really tight and then iron those down onto the shirt and then spray your bleach over like in a big messy mess and then let it dry and lighten up and then take off your letters and numbers and those will still be black on a black t-shirt and it'll be pretty visible. But also, you want to wash it before you wear it 'cause it's going to smell.
I also think your tip about primer could give people an option of using your other technique to use a black shirt.
Yeah, primer. I mean, my dad would be happy that I mentioned primer. I worked in the paint department at Home Depot for a few years, and I also mentioned I was in the Navy, and I spent 4 years basically painting stuff, Battleship Gray. Primer is going to be your helpful go-to, and primer it just like it's a thin, watery, usually a white colored spray paint. It's not gonna look like very helpful at all, but it's gonna be helpful. I'm telling you. If you spray it first with primer, let it dry like 2 minutes because primer dries really fast because it's thinner than paint, and then put your spray paint over it in a light color, like preferably a white. But I mean, if you got suckered into some neon or something, I would go for like a neon green versus like a neon pink because that green is really gonna have more white in the base. But that's getting into the weeds there.
Cool. Yeah, I love starting with primer on any art project because I'm messy, and so I like to be able to just say, okay, do over this section, do over.
Yeah.
Hit the primer again with either the brush or the paint, and wipe it away and start over again. Like I don't think I'd be very successful at the bleach technique just because I need that do over possibility.
I think we're gonna have a date with the bleach technique because I'm pretty good at it. It's kind of technical and it is more detailed, so I didn't touch on it this one, but I can show you to do bleach.
Do this. And then I've got a question from Ashley. Should we switch to line dry cold water for jerseys made with these techniques?
No, I mean you can if you're really worried about it. I would say that laundry is not my strong suit. I don't love doing laundry. I've never been great at laundry. So I just throw it all in the wash, whatever setting and whatever soap I have, and it comes out great. It comes out really nice and soft and doesn't smell bad. And then the more I wash that shirt, the like just more worn in and great it looks, and it still totally has enough contrast in it. Um, I just really want to encourage you to like just go to Gen X Clothing and get those $2 shirts or blank shirts and just try some of these techniques out. You're gonna be a pro before you know it. You're gonna be like, oh, I should go to farmers market and sell T-shirts.
There are so many crazy techniques online too for people cutting t-shirts and weaving them, and I'm like, I'm too old to get into that. I can't do like a whole new thing right now, but if you have the time on your hands that your early 20s allows, no offense, but usually in the trajectory of one's life, I would be hitting that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when I made a lot of T-shirts, and I did like 20 T-shirts for the whole team, and then we needed a theme, and we needed them in 2 days because, of course, there was no planning. I would always give them some relief cuts, definitely with things in mind that they're going to be doing heavy athletic activity. My first cut would always be cutting off that bottom band of the T-shirt where it's like 2 or 3 layers. I would cut that bottom band off completely because a lot of players will be pulling on their shirts, and I could see them tugging on it, and it's uncomfortable. Definitely would give like some relief cuts in the side so that's more airy. Cutting the sleeves off is best. Cut it about half an inch beyond where that shoulder seam is, and then cut it down a little bit lower so that their armpits can breathe. And I also like to cut off the top band. It's just if you've ever really been stuck and there's nobody else to swap out and everybody's injured and you're there for 30 minutes skating, you want that shirt to be as breathable as possible.
Yeah.
And it's not a forever shirt. It's usually just a practice shirt for a season or two.
Cool. Does anybody else have any questions? I thought this was awesome and delightful, and I think that with your permission, Bitter, we did record this, and so I would love to share this. And oh my gosh, I think that our teenager friends have missed out on not attending this, and maybe the timing. We're just getting used to when the timing works best for these. But I'm thinking that I'm going to send this right over to the junior program coordinator to get the rosebuds and the petals busy making some shirts.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I did cupcakes versus ice cream bout for the juniors, and I mean, I got $2 little dresses, t-shirt, jersey dresses. You can find them at any bug box store, pretty much like on clearance, and then everybody can have them, and they're really great if you have the stencils. A black spray paint on a light colored shirt, super fun to do. Yeah, it's
That's
a fun
awesome.
project.
I love it. All right, give us your hashtags one more time, just so everybody can find you on Instagram.
Oh, I'm on Instagram at mama_makes_time. Mama makes time. And then some of the hashtags I mentioned was hashtag big stitch quilting. If you want to look at how those big stitches are done, you're going to fall in love because it's really fun to do and it looks great and it looks handmade. And if you're making something by hand, like I know I want it to look like I made it by hand, not like manufactured by a machine really quickly. I want people to know that it took me some time.
It's awesome. Great. Well, thanks for all the encouragement. And I super love all these great ideas. And people are definitely going to want to check out the scooters as well. So
yeah, I got a gold wing too. Do you see my gold wing?
Yeah.
It's so big.
I have this motorcycle license, but I am a danger to others. I just stopped that right away. So. All right, I look forward to having coffee with you when we're all back in society, and I'm going to text you about the pricing on that quilt behind you as well.
All right, thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Awesome. All right, talk to you later, Bitter. Bye.
Okay, bye.